First of all, thank you again for coming. My name is Jean Mueller. I'm the president of the Blair Lutheran WELCA. We all welcome you. I especially want to thank the committee that provided the food and the service downstairs. I remember who was on that committee: Shirley, Helen, Lorraine, Barb, Natalie, and Kathy. This little book was put together by our council president, Holly Anderson, for us to have for you to enjoy. So the food that you ate, they're in here. There are more recipes, less recipes than there was food, because we had a lot of food, wasn't it? And it was so good. Thank you. I need to take a minute to acknowledge who came today. So, when I ask for your church, would you please stand up? And we welcome you. We'll give everybody a hand when we're all done, okay? St. Ansgar's. Thank you. Which is the Catholic Church here in Blair. How about St. John's in Whitehall? Okay. Mendoro. Thank you. North Beaver Creek, Ettrick. Thank you. Caledonia, Minnesota. Christ Lutheran in Arcadia. Thank you. Peace Lutheran in Pigeon. Eau Claire. I have a couple of people here from Eau Claire. I'm not sure which one. I know. I'm not sure which church they go to, or if they go to the same one, but I do know they go to Lutheran churches up there.
Trinity and Spirit.
Pardon?
Trinity Lutheran and Spirit Lutheran.
Okay, Spirit Lutheran and Trinity Lutheran.
Yes.
French Creek, Ettrick. Okay, good. Our Savior's in Whitehall. Oops. Thank you. Living Hope in Ettrick. Zion Lutheran in Galesville. Thank you. South Beaver Creek. Very good, thank you. Let's see if I have anybody else. Hardy's Creek. Okay. Now, have I missed anybody? Anybody here that I didn't get? Well, how about Blair Lutheran? There we go. Okay, thank you all for coming and welcome. We've been, if you'll notice, we kind of have a theme of the bees. I saw this fabric and I was inspired by the bees. So we have a lot of different things for us to be aware of. Mostly to be kind and be positive and be loving and share and be patient. We could go on and on. So this is kind of what I wanted you to concentrate on and to be inspired, because you all inspire me. I have a short reading. No, I don't. I've got to get my glasses. I thought I had everything.
You did. It was just in another place.
These are, you have cataract surgery and then you can't see, and then you have it, and then you only can see with cheaters and okay. In this my time with the Lord, it's a very thing that enables me to get my best out to others. It is a spiritual time with God that inspires my physical and emotional well-being. I forget that, as do many Christians. You see, God created us in his image. Like him, we are triune, with physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects to our being. We spend a great deal of time taking care of our physical needs, like eating and sleeping, bathing, and fluffing whatever needs to be fluffed. We also spend lots of energy on our emotional needs, reading, studying, conversing, working. Most of us work hard to keep all of our plates spinning, and yet many people, even Christians, say they feel empty on the inside. That's a sure sign that spiritual needs have not been met. The best days of my life are the days when I properly balance all three dimensions of my being. Those are the days I feel most in sync with nature, at peace in my mind, inspired in my work, excited and challenged to be a light in the world. Light a candle in your world by setting aside that quiet, special time to listen to the voice of God in your heart. Let him refresh and renew you as you read his word. Give him your burdens through prayer and spend time meditating on his love and care. So, thank you again. I would like to introduce Eileen back. She's always the best help to find a program, and today we have a wonderful program, so I'd like to have her introduce you to Inga. I'll get there.
Thank you, Jeannie. You probably know that we've done quite a bit of advertising about this, and most of you girls probably have seen Inga on a program someplace on your television lately. And we're so thankful that Inga will come and share a little bit of her recipes with us. And she also has a recipe that you'll be able to have as a handout. So thank you, Inga. It's Inga Witscher, and she does live in the Osceola area, and she'll tell you a little bit about how she started with everything. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear me now? Oh, good. I was thinking, I don't know if I can figure out how to turn this thing on. I might not be telling you guys anything, but thank you guys for coming. So has anybody seen the program before? Okay, so one thing we always do on the program is I say, gather with us, and you guys say, but with a little bit more pep, right? Okay, ready? Gather with us! Around the fire table. I'm your host, Inga Witscher. That was really, really good. Sometimes on our program we have some of my neighbors, they come over and they're all farmers and they come down and they're like, yeah, okay, around the farm table. All right, pour us a glass of wine and then I gotta go home and over. So it's nice when I get to hear the lovely sounds coming out. And it's nice to be here today. I've kind of been stuck on the farm for a while, and I've just been looking at the rear end of my cows. So this is a really welcome sight for me today. So thank you guys for having me, and thank you for the delicious food. I was really looking forward to this all day. I was telling my husband, I said, oh, I'm gonna get some really good food tomorrow. And he's like, wait a minute, you got a cooking show. I'm like, I know, but these ladies really know how to cook. So I was really glad to be here. I grew up in Washington State on my parents' 80-cow dairy. We milked Holsteins out there, and that was in the 90s. What happened in the 90s was we were getting pushed up by urban sprawl and high land prices in our community out there. And so a lot of our farmers, about 20 families, moved to northern Wisconsin to continue dairy farming. And my parents weren't ready to go at the time, and they didn't really want to sell their farm as a farm because nobody was buying farmland. So they actually turned their farm into a golf course. And we just started mowing down the pastures, and we had this big manure lagoon that we had that as our water hazard. And we tell people, don't go in there if you feel this well. How many people grew up on a farm? Oh, good. Okay, so if I need somebody to come milk cows for me while I'm on vacation, you guys know how to do it. That's good. So I moved here 13 years ago to the Osseo area, and I started milking cows. Now, when I was growing up, even though I grew up on the farm, I had to feed calves and help out on the farm. I thought, for sure, the only thing I wanted to do was become a hairdresser. That was my whole dream in life, was just to do hair. And so I went to school to be a hairdresser after high school, and I actually flunked because I couldn't do a finger wave. So then I had to come up with a second career choice, and that happened to be dairy farming. Before I moved to Wisconsin, I was living in Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. There was a really wealthy lady that hired my family to come and start an organic farm there. We had a creamery and a bakery, and I made cheese, and my brothers did the cow work, and then eventually we all lived here. And I stayed back there for a while. I was doing gardening. I was doing vegetable gardens for these really wealthy people. And they'd say, oh, we want organic gardens, whatever. So I'd do these grow vegetable gardens for them, which is my favorite thing to do. And they'd pay me money. And then they wouldn't use any of the vegetables, so I got to take it all home. And I was like, this is kind of a nice gig. Like, I get to pay for what I love to do, and then I get to take all the food home. And then I hit a little bit of a, well, what do I do? And my parents had just purchased this farm out in Osseo, and 30 acres, and my dad says, well, why don't you come up to Wisconsin and start dairy farming? And I says, well, I really want to grow vegetables. And he says, well, I know, but you're going to make so much money dairy farming. Don't ever lie to your kids. Like, that was not funny. So I said, well, I'll come up and visit you guys. But I didn't have any money. I had this car that was just a clunker. And I thought, no bank is going to give me a loan, right? I mean, I'm a beauty school dropout, basically, with a nanny. And so I went down to Whitehall to the FSA office. And I had my little dress on, and I was just like, I think I'm gonna be a dairy farmer today, you know? And I filled out the paperwork, and they called me a few days later, and he said, congratulations, the loan's been approved because you're socially disadvantaged. And I was like, I don't know, I'm pretty social. They said, no, we have to fill a quota for women farmers and women and minorities. And my brother had been trying to get the same loan, and he's like an amazing herdsman. And he was like, I'm so happy for you. And I was thinking, what are you doing giving me this money? But luckily I had my dad there on the farm. I lived with my parents for quite a few years until they realized that I was never going to move out. So they actually left and moved to Eau Claire to get rid of me. But I loved, my friends would say, well, isn't it terrible living with your parents, at 24? And I thought, I love this. I mean, I don't have to go grocery shopping. I don't have to pay the electric bill. Like, why wouldn't I want to live here? And they were like, yeah, exactly. And see you later. So they gave me a loan to buy cows. And I had never been in a stall barn before. I'd only milked in a milking parlor. I didn't really realize the stall barns, what they were. And so we got these cows, 30 cows I started with. The first milking took me 8 hours to milk. Yeah, and I was standing there and I was just shaking, and I thought, and of course the cows could feel my energy, so they were just running up and down. And then I'm like, but where do they go? My dad's like, they're gonna go in here and you're gonna get in between them and milk them. I'm like, no, and so my dad was in between these two cows, and you could hear they were pressing against him because the cows got so nervous, you could hear his ribs kind of cracking a little bit. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was like, Dad, this is the worst thing. And he said, the greatest advice I've ever heard, he said, Inga, you can scream, you can cry, you can go crazy, but not until all the cows are milked and we're inside drinking a martini. I was like, all right. So now I drink a martini. The second milking, I absolutely fell in love with farming. And it's one of those things, do you know, maybe like you meet that special person or you find that career, there's something that it felt like something was missing for so long. And then when I started dairy farming, it was that filled that void for me. And I've been now doing it for 13 years, which I can't believe. I don't know why I but I'm still 20, right? No, you're not. That's why everything hurts when you move around. So we have 30 acres, so we just downsized from 40 cows to 10 cows. I got 7 cows right now. I'm going to grow up to 10 cows, which is not a lot of cows, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to build a creamery on the farm so we can turn our milk into cheese. So I don't know if you guys know what's happening in the dairy industry right now, but it's collapsing big time. I think we've lost over 600 farms this year, dairy farms in Wisconsin, which is just, it's crazy. And so I'm hoping to be an example of how we can still continue on in the dairy industry. I know I've got 4 nephews and they want to really farm, so I'm hoping to make this business sustainable so that they can come into it and have a place where they can farm. So fingers crossed. But as luck would have it, in my 13th year, we had a horrible barn fire in November, and we lost all of our young stock. Our milk cows were outside, so they were fine. And it was, the worst nightmare, right, for farmers, and it was completely overwhelming. And then in January or February, we lost our hay shed under the snow, and then 2 weeks later, we lost our winter housing under the snow. And so I told my husband, I said, I think we're gonna bring the cows in the kitchen. I thought, well, if they can just stay in the kitchen, then I can wash the floor. And he's like, they're not coming in the house. I'm like, they're jerseys, they're small. And he's like, no, they're not coming in the house. So we had one of our oldest buildings on the farm. It's still the only one that's still standing. So we put our cow in there when she calved. And now, thank goodness, it's springtime and the grass is green and they're all outside on pasture and they're so happy. But we're overwhelmed by the community support over the last winter. And, I've lived in Washington State, I've lived in the East Coast. I've never experienced kindness quite like I have here in Wisconsin. Give yourselves a hand, you guys. It's really amazing. When I first moved here and was, learning how to farm and learning how to do things, my neighbors came down and taught me how to do stuff, and they invited me to come down and have coffee with them. It's funny being a woman dairy farmer. I love it. People are like, women farm. I'm like, women have been farming since the dawn of time. Who do you think's out there feeding calves right now? Okay, it's the wives, the milking cows. I said, the husbands just sit around and do it. Don't put this on camera. And so my neighbors, all the guys, after they get done with chores, they go down to my neighbor Tom's for coffee. And people would tell me, they'd say, oh, women are the worst gossips. Whoever said that has never sat at a table with a bunch of men drinking coffee. I tell you what. You can leave that in. But no, it's so fun. It's so fun to be part of this community and get to do what I do. We started doing Around the Farm Table 7 or 8 years ago. My dad, between milking cows, he grew up on a farm, and then he took a little bit of a break after high school. He was a traveling comedian and entertainer, and so he traveled all over the United States. And then when my oldest brother was born, he went back to the farm and bought my grandparents' cows and started his own farm there. So he's always had this kind of entertaining gene. And one winter we were watching this show called The Two Fat Ladies. Has anybody ever heard of it? Okay, yeah. If you haven't seen it, try to get on YouTube and watch it. It is hilarious. It is these two ladies, they go around England in a motorbike in a sidecar and they pick up different ingredients and they're hilarious. They're so good. They'll have like a handsome guy walking through and they'll stop and like, look at him, he's cute. It's so funny. But we were watching that show and then we watched a similar show to it. And my dad said, here's the thing. There's all these chefs talking about farming and local food and why it's important, but we never hear that from the farmer. And it should be the farmer telling the story. So we're gonna do a TV show. I think we should pitch to PBS. You're gonna host it, we'll gather ingredients, and you're gonna cook at the end. And we were literally in the barn when we were talking about this, and I was like, all right, I guess so. So that was 7 years ago, and this last year we just went national, so now we're in almost all 50 states so far, so we get to share. Thank you. Share Wisconsin with everybody around the world. And I think it's going to be fun when people like in California, they're going to watch an episode and say, oh, they're doing a Christmas episode, but really it's Easter, but we still have 8 feet of snow on the ground. That was one of the toughest things for me, is getting used to the winter time here. I had no idea that I could actually be still alive after walking through like 30 below, I'm like, how am I still breathing? How are the cows still alive? But it's made me, and that's why I gained a bunch of weight since I moved here, and I tell people, well, I gotta get insulation for next winter, I'm not gonna get cold again. So today what I'm gonna make is, it's called switchel. It's a haymaker's punch. It was invented way back in the 1800s in the East Coast. They would make it out of the apple cider vinegar and molasses. Today we're gonna use honey. I think it ties in well with the bee theme. And it sort of was like the original thirst quencher, like a Gatorade or a sports drink where it has the electrolytes. And the electrolytes come from the apple cider vinegar. I put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in my water every morning and just take a drinkful. It boosts your mood. Do you do too? Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, but it helps your immune system, and it does all kinds of good stuff for you. My cow herd, they've been organic for years and years, and so I have to use holistic medicine with them. One thing I'll do for mastitis is put a little apple cider vinegar on their food, and it lowers their somatic cell count, makes them a little bit healthier. I use a lot of aloe vera too to boost your immune system. And so now I started taking it my own, but I have to break up the cow doses a little bit. I'm not that big yet, so I have to break them up to take them. But that's what I love about farming too. It's like, well, I could go buy this at the grocery store, but it's a lot cheaper at Stockman's, in the cow department. They'll sell a thing of Pepto-Bismol in a gallon. It's so much cheaper than buying the actual Pepto-Bismol. I'm wondering if when we were kids, my mom would just have the vet come and check us out instead of taking us to the doctor. It probably would have made sense. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my piece of ginger. Does anybody cook with ginger? This is another good one for you right here. And then I just peel it with a spoon. So that I'm just going to peel the outside with a spoon. And then I'm not wasting a bunch of ginger. So I learned that from Martha Stewart, which I think she's great. The fun part about doing a show for PBS is I get to meet famous people sometimes. So has anybody watched Cooking with Lydia? Does you watch that program? Yeah. So I got to meet her. I found out that I was going to be meeting her the next day, and I told my husband, I said, oh my gosh, I get to meet Lydia from Cooking with Lydia, or from Lydia's Italian Kitchen. And he's like, she's my favorite cooking show host. And I was like, what, your favorite? I hope she's gonna make you dinner tonight, honey. Because I'm not. But she was so nice, and it was just so fun. And I had some garlic that I'd grown on my farm, and I gave it to her. And I thought, oh, she's probably gonna throw it away. And then the people from Wisconsin Public Television called me the next day, and they said, she took her little thing of garlic with her on the plane, and she said she was so excited to use it. I'm like, she's using my garlic? I was so excited. All right, and then you're just gonna, so for some reason when we talk about fresh ginger, we always measure it. So it's 1 inch for the recipes. So, and I never measure anything anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I kind of got some flack at public television. One of the main ladies, she says, Inga, please, when you're cooking, just measure it. Because you say sometimes, just add a little bit of sugar. And it's like 4 cups of sugar. I was like, tomato. But I try. But I haven't done very good at it yet. So we're just gonna, the other thing too, I forget that Madison is a city and that a lot of people, I forget that not everyone grew up on a farm or not everyone knows what a farm is. And so our folks down there, they had to give us another producer to go with us on our shows, because sometimes we'll say things like a fresh cow or a dry cow, and they're like, people don't know what those are. I'm like, what do you mean they don't know? And so they said to us, well, where do you find these people to be on your show? And it's just my neighbors that are doing the eating segments with us most time. And they said, are they like paid actors? I'm like, no, they're farmers. They're like, are they really farmers? I'm like, you should smell them. They just smell like they're absolutely real. But it's so funny. All right, we'll grade that in there. Okay. And it's fun doing the show too, because, well, now my neighbors get recognized a lot. My neighbor Tom, I don't know, do you guys know Tom Johnson? Yeah. So Tom comes home, he's such a character. I love that guy. He comes home, he said he was at Farm and Fleet the other day, and he goes, And some guy came up to me, he says, I want to see more tractors on around the farm table. And I says, I do too. So that's why I'm coming down. I'm going to tell you, we want to see more tractors on the show. I was like, okay, whatever, Tom. But it's cute. Okay, and then I'm going to add honey. Let me see, I'm going to look at my recipe here. I haven't made this since last summer. I keep this in my fridge all summer long so that when I come in from fixing fence or moving the cows or gardening, I can have a cup of this. This is a half a cup. And I'm using local honey from the Osseo, I guess they probably have hives out here too. So one thing that's happening with our bees is we're losing habitat for the bees. So remember in the old days, there was smaller dairy farms all over the place, and they put their cows on pasture. So what's out in the pasture? It's dandelions coming up right now, all these different little clovers and different things like that. So the bees always had access to food. But now as our agriculture has shifted, we have bigger monocultures, like we see the corn and the beans. And so we're getting rid of the first food of the bees. So one thing we've done on our property is we've put aside some acreage that isn't great for farming or grazing, and we're growing ironweed, goldenrod, all kinds of different things so that throughout the year we can have bees, habitat for bees, our grassland bird species, and so on and so forth. So we can have a healthy environment for that. And I'm gonna add a half a cup of apple cider vinegar. I use Bragg's at home, but I asked my husband to pick this up for me, so of course he got the wrong brand. Just kidding. And a little bit in there. So I grew up wanting to be a hairdresser. My husband, he's from a farm family, but it skipped his parents' generation. And his parents own a hair salon. So he actually is managing their hair salon, and I'm farming, and so we have we grew up with different things. So it's really funny. But it's, my mother-in-law grew up milking cows, so she loves to come out and milk cows with me every once in a while, which is fun. My mom told me early on, she goes, I'm never going to go to the barn and milk cows with you. I'll do anything else other than milking cows. I love, did anyone grow, I mean, did everyone have to milk cows growing up? Yeah. So after the barn burnt down, all my milk equipment burnt down with it, right? So my first cow calved a few weeks ago, and so I've been milking by hand. And I remember my grandma, I grew up in my grandma's kitchen, that's where I kind of learned to cook, and she had arthritis real bad in her hands, and she said, that's from a lifetime of milking cows. Again, with people thinking it's just now women are farming, right? And I said, oh, Grandma, it couldn't have been that bad. And about the third day I was milking cows, the power busted and the milking units went down. And I thought, it's my grandma up there saying, yeah, it is polite. And I was sitting there milking cow by cow.
It's also murder.
It's your dad's wiring in the barn?
No, my dad always kept one cow that was milked by hand.
No kidding.
And I also had to help if it was trying to be a milk. I had to milk it on my hand because he always said, we have to know how that the power goes on.
Well, I've got one cow now I'm milking if you want to come over and help me. So for those of you who don't know, I actually live on the farm that Kathy grew up on. So my parents purchased it from her parents, and so now we're there. So it's fun to have that history connecting. And I know the story of when Kathy got married and she had to milk cows that morning. I'll let her tell you, it's a good story. But, so it's that easy. So it's a half and a half, and then you just follow that in with a gallon of water. And you can taste it if you want a little bit sweeter. Like I said, you could use molasses too if you've got some molasses to use up. But this was, it's really refreshing. And you can add some chopped fruit to it too. So if you've got some strawberries are going to be coming up, I wouldn't put rhubarb in here, but I put strawberries in, and it makes a nice little drink. And then, oops. And then what you do is you pour it all over the table. Try to get a little bit, oh, yeah. I'm not going to pour anymore. I don't want to ruin everything. I don't know why I'm the one with the TV show. So, and that's how you make your switchel. Does anybody have any questions about the show or about farming or anything like that? Ooh, look at me, I guess I did it again.
Are you back on public television
We're going to be back on public television this fall. I think we just are filming right now. So we just got done filming in La Crosse last week, and then on the farm, and then we'll be back on in October. And it helps too if you guys like the show. Let them know. Sometimes they'll have a phone number after the shows. Let them know that you like Around the Farm Table, and so we can keep doing this. One of the reasons we also wanted to do the show, at the time, I was trying to sell some beef off my farm because, I got bull cows, and what do you do with them? But I find that I take my beef and I would put it into the grocery stores and they'd sit in the freezer. Because, well, what's the difference between that or something else? And so I was like, we have to educate folks on why maybe this is a little bit more expensive or whatever. And a lot of our ground beef that we get in the store, that could have 5-6 different cows in it from who knows how many different countries. And so you never know, like we have a lot of food recalls lately. And if you're buying the food directly from that farmer, you're gonna know, they can shut that down pretty fast if somebody calls in and says, hey, I got sick from this or whatever, they can shut that down. But what it's also doing is, I just think of the dairy industry, like I buy in all my feed, so it's like that money is going to, who I buy my feed from. I go up to Stockman's and get my milk supplies. There's well, not anymore because the barn's burned down, but there was a milk truck driver that came to pick up my milk. There was those people back at the cheese factory that are working, and all these little people that are involved in dairy systems. So last year, the guy who breeds my cows, we do artificial insemination, he went out of business because there's not enough farms anymore. And what are the vets going to do? It's just, there's the economy of rural and of farming, it stretches up so far. And so when we support those local folks, if we support that local vegetable grower, or if we buy our half a hog from somebody in our community, we're putting that money right back into our community. So the one thing that we do too is I've been meeting with these farmers and talking to them about what they're passionate for, why are they doing this? And they say, hey, I want to build healthy soil. I want to build healthy soil so that I can grow healthy food, because my job is feeding someone. I want to be able to feed them the healthiest thing possible. So for me, that means it's so exciting because they have to really care for that soil. They're caring for the water around them, and it's a big deal. So they're not just growing food, they're really growing an environment. So that's why I like to support local farmers. So I always like to say, if you can't grow it yourself, find a farmer's market that can grow it, or a farmer next door, and you're gonna always have really great food. And the other thing is, when you have that seasonal food, when you have that tomato that didn't have to come out from California, it's a whole different experience, right? Mm-hmm. And when you have those eggs from the chickens down the road, I get my eggs from my neighbor right now. My husband, I love my husband. It's taken him a few springs to learn that we don't let the chickens out and to run around the yard. So all of our chickens went to their final resting place in the last couple of days because something came to eat them. So luckily I have a neighbor that has eggs. But everything likes to eat chicken. And when you get those eggs that are just really, really orange, it's a whole different experience when you're eating. So I encourage you all to kind of look out this year to find some farmers in your area. So thank you guys so much for having me. Recipe cards up here too if you want to take a recipe card home. This is actually a really, really delicious drink. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Inga, do you plan on rebuilding?
Do I plan on rebuilding the farm? Yes. So I think next week we're going to start with we just did the silo demolition on TV actually, or we filmed it for television. So everyone gets to see that, which is kind of amazing to see. And then we're going to start pushing everything in next week. And then start rebuilding. Hopefully, if anybody has any contractors that they could suggest, let me know. I'm still trying to nail down somebody to do the building because so many buildings came down over the winter around here that all the contractors are just so busy. So we're trying to get that nailed in. So we'll hopefully be up and running, and we're going to be making cheese once we get back up and going. So awesome, thank you. We're going to be doing it's a raw milk aged cheddar. So we'll age it for 6 months, and what we're focusing on is really, my part of it is making sure that the cows have a really healthy diet. We do rotational grazing, so the cows move every 8 hours to new pasture, And so it flavors the milk differently. So you can kind of, the cheese will be different from season to season. And it'll be more of a, I'm gonna sell it to more high-end cheese shops. So if people wanna put together like a cheese plate or something, it'd be a perfect match for that. But yeah, so, yeah. I'll come back next year with cheese.
Thank you all for coming and have a safe trip home.